So I get this question online and in person a lot. Where can I find free patterns? How do I get free patterns? Do you sew any free patterns? And I have some super controversial opinions on this, but hello and welcome back to Ashley Made Makes, and today we are talking about free plus size patterns, some alternatives, and how I think you should use them. So I'm a designer by trade. Although it's in a different field, that is my day job. I've gone to school for it. I've spent hundreds of hours learning about it. I've done it for several years and it's in a niche topic. And I still have people all the time asking me to do stuff for free and discounting all that time that I have spent learning the craft, perfecting it, and becoming an expert in my field. I feel very much the same way about sewing patterns. These are mostly women, mostly running small businesses, and even if they're not educated in the subject, they've spent hundreds of hours learning their craft, especially in plus size, tooling it, especially the plus size blocks, seeking out information, working with each other, getting testers involved. A lot of this is women's run labor. I feel very strongly that people should be paid for that. This all costs time, this all costs money, and even if you're only charging $2, $3, $5 for a pattern, I think it is well worth it, especially in this economy. If there's few things I'll pay for, that's one of them. All that being said, there are a lot of free patterns out there that are an option, but what I want you to think about when you're looking at free patterns is, why is that person making this free pattern and what is the benefit to them? Because I don't think a lot of people spend the time thinking about why this thing exists. Usually these patterns are very typical of what a company does well. It's both its style and its instructions, and sort of is very typical of what you would expect for the brand. Often they also come with things like signing up for their newsletter, and so it's very much used as a marketing tool. And so I would use these patterns as they are intended. So they're intended to be used to test out the brand and see if that's something that works for both your body and your brain, if you like their instructions and their style. So that is very much the way in which I would use them. I would not recommend jumping from pattern company to pattern company using each one of their free patterns. That generally is not going to give you the best results long term, because not only are you going to have to learn different styles of doing things every time, but also you're going to have to make mock-ups and alterations every time and figure out what those are. There's a reason you see me make the same few pattern companies over and over again, especially when I have an event, because it avoids me a lot of mock-ups after a while, because I know what my standard adjustments are and that I already work well with these patterns. Remember that every pattern that you do does have a cost associated with it. So even if you do get the pattern for free, it still does require that you either print it off, either at home or at a printer. There's paper, there's ink, even if you're stealing it from your office. You have to spend the time taping it together, tracing it off, and getting mock-up fabric. And all of that is a lot of time and skill involved. And personally, I would rather spend my time actually sewing and doing the enjoyable part than endlessly adjusting patterns that aren't meant for me. Some of the other avenues that I'm not really mentioning here of ways to get free patterns, I think especially I would be wary of if you are plus size like me, because a lot of them don't have good drafting. They were either drafted on a single block and graded all the way up to plus size. So you're gonna end up with some weirdness. There's a lot of patterns out there that are not gonna work. And so I would really recommend going with reputable pattern makers. I don't know how much I can emphasize this, because nothing is more expensive than giving up and selling your machine on Facebook Marketplace because you've decided sewing is terrible. With all that being said, we're going to get into some good recommendations here. But like I say, the way I would use these is if you've looked at kind of the other patterns in their catalog, you're maybe interested in buying a few of them, and you want to test out the brand. So I'll go ahead and get off my soapbox. I know all of you are just here for the free patterns. I am going to be referencing my phone. I did set up a Pinterest board with all the free patterns on it, so if you'd like to go have a look at it, I'll leave in the description bar down below. I did also leave all the links down there, but I find the Pinterest board a little bit easier to reference just so that I can see everything. And with all that being said, let's get into this. So the first pattern I'm going to be talking about does all the things things that I have mentioned that these patterns should do. Very simple, very typical of the brand, and has some sort of marketing component. So the first one is the Laundry Day Tee by Love Notions. I actually really like this pattern. I've made several versions of it in the past. It is either a knit t-shirt, tunic, or swing dress. It comes with either a scoop neck, a v-neck, or a cowl neck, and either sleeved or sleeveless. So if you're catching on, that is exceptionally typical of Love Notions. They always have like 1,000 options to their patterns, and that's one of the reasons I actually think it's a really good company to work with if you're on a lower budget. I made a lot of Love Notions patterns when I first started. I know a lot of people are ambassadors for this one on YouTube. I am not, but call me, I guess. But if you've been kind of interested in those, if you've seen their catalog, if you've seen some of the other makes on YouTube, this might be something to look at. This would be a good pattern to start with. It is regularly $5, or you can get a code, I believe, from their Facebook group. I didn't know at the time. I paid $5 for it. I'm not angry about my $5. I think I made 6 different versions of it. So do with that information with what you will. Next up is the Charm Patterns circle skirt. So again, does all the things. Very simple, very typical of Charm Patterns style, and sort of has a marketing component, I would say. This pattern interchanges a lot with some of their Patreon patterns and some of their regular Charm Patterns, I believe. So it kind of uses, it's another purpose for Gertie. You can add this one on to a lot of the other patterns. In being that it's very typical of the brand, Gertie does a lot of vintage. You've probably seen me make a lot of Charm here on the channel, but it is very typical of Charm in that it is a vintage length, and it comes with a lot of great vintage details in it. Often I will recommend people go and get this pattern just for the lap zipper tutorial in it if you want to add a lap zipper to a dress or something, which is kind of my preferred zipper, honestly. Great thing to get started with if you're trying to get started in vintage. She also has a double circle skirt, which I have not made, mostly because that's a lot of fabric and a lot of skirt, but that's also there too. I did do a hacking this pattern into a Son de Fleur skirt, so I'll leave that up above here so you can go have a look at that, because honestly, even more mileage out of a free pattern, might as well. Next up is fan favorite Helen's Closet. So she has the Luna Tank, which is a knit cropped swing top. So again, very simple, very, very typical of Helen's Closet, cropped swing silhouette, both things that she does a lot of and honestly wears herself, it seems like. The other one she has though is a banger. It is the Sam apron. I have made this one for my fiance, and it is the best apron pattern I've ever seen. It has both length, like height and width adjustments and grading. It also includes a bunch of like fine finishing details. I didn't do a lot of them at the time because I was just working on my old Janome, and which did terrible bar tacks, but I'm honestly thinking about doing this one again and trying it out on my vintage Singer that does much nicer bar tacks. Also, I found out that Wawak has the cotton belting for the strap and the ties, so I am really interested in making this one again. I think it is by far the best apron pattern I've ever seen. I think you could use it in a variety of applications, like I think it's her husband is a woodworker, so that's what he uses his for. My fiance loves his. He's worn it absolutely to death. It's his favorite thing that I've made for him. Kind of like side tangent off topic. He loves another YouTuber called Joshua Wiseman, who's a chef here on YouTube, and he had some merch of an apron very similar to this, and it had a smiley face on it, and I was trying to get it for him. It kept selling out, and then he announced he wasn't bringing it back, so I decided to make him this apron, and that's why his has a smiley face on it. I did line the pockets of this case, so it has like little Avengers on the inside. I think I would have been better off to do Helen's method with the folding and the bar tacks. Again, my machine wouldn't have handled it, but anyway, needless to say, I love it. I think it's great, and I'll definitely be making him another one in the future. I know it's happening. So the next one up is You.Make, which was previously Rebecca Page. So if you've seen that before, I haven't made any of these particularly myself, but I have made a Rebecca Page pattern before, also for my fiance, because they do carry a few plus size men's patterns, which are really hard to find. So just throwing that out there. Yes, they've done a little bit of a rebranding. It is called You.Make now. I will mention I did have to sign up for their free subscription, which is basically the same, like sort of a newsletter idea as the other ones. But I will say it was like a little bit annoying marketing to get through. They're really pushing their other paid subscription while you're there, which again, their prerogative, they're free patterns. I'm not going to complain, especially because they have a lot of them. So I'm going to go through them quite quickly here. They've got a whole bunch of party dresses and different things. So we're going to run through those first. So the first one up is the Serenity dress, which is a cute like sweater dress, cowl neck. I think it'd be very cute for this time of year. It's not really for my body type, but I do think it would be like absolutely adorable if I saw someone in this at a Christmas party. That would be like 10 out of 10. The next one's up, the Portia party dress. I think this one is fairly popular, I want to say. It rings a bell anyway. It's basically kind of a shaped empire waist with a flutter sleeve, so probably a little bit lighter weight fabric, like probably something rayon-y you'd want to make that out of. The next is the Phoebe party dress, which is a like sleeveless, deep V front and back, giant full skirt dress. It's like it's not a ball gown, but it's like getting there. I would say it'd make a lovely prom dress if someone was looking for a prom dress. I think what's actually like really good about these is like a lot of special occasion dresses, those are kind of patterns that you would use once and maybe not make them again. I mean, some of the workhorses you'll kind of make a fancy version of, but a lot of fancy dresses you're not going to. So, you know, it's kind of nice that these are the free patterns they picked. Next is what they're calling the Paris party dress. And this isn't actually a dress. I don't know why they're calling this a party dress. Maybe just because it's in this line of free patterns, but it's basically a box pleated skirt and a knit top. So if you wanted to get like kind of both in one pattern, that would be really good. And I think you could get a lot of versatility out of just like a knit top and test out their block and their sizing. How many are we at? Fifth up, Patsy party dress. This one I know is very popular. Maybe it's just in my corner of the internet, but this Patsy dress is very much like a Miss Maisley vintagey dress. So if you like that, dig it. It does have a couple of skirt versions and it comes with like a wider sleeve or a thinner sleeve. So actually some really nice options. I do think it's a nice dress. I see why it's popular. So now that we're through the party dresses, the last two are my favorites. So the first one is an apron. I know, another apron pattern, but I do really like this one. It is a kind of simple apron on top with a 3-tiered skirt. It looks exceptionally close though to a true vintage one that my friend Serena made. So I'll leave her video down below, but she finished hers with bias binding and that would be easy enough to do. And the lovely thing about it is it's size inclusive. So, you know, I could make an apron that's very similar to hers and that would be a lot of fun. So I was very excited to see this. I might make it, maybe not for this Christmas, but. And the last one is the Betty skirt, which is a full circle 6-score skirt. Now, that is exceptionally close to my beloved charm pattern Stanwick skirt that I make all the time. In fact, the dress that I'm sitting in right now has a Stanwick skirt. So this is very, very cool to see because that is a very expensive pattern and this one is free. If you've liked my skirts in the past, this might be a really cool option. I'm almost tempted to like try it out myself just because it is free for you guys. So yeah, and the thing that's great about a gored skirt versus a full circle skirt is for plus size, it's a lot more efficient use of fabric. And honestly, I like the drape a little bit better because you don't get that draping at the corners. I think it's a much better skirt than just a full circle. So I am very excited about this. Probably what I would do is get this pattern and then go get the free charm patterns with the lap zipper tutorial and call it a day myself, but you didn't hear me say that. They also have a t-shirt, but I'm calling that a throwaway. I mean, honestly, how many t-shirt patterns do we need? So the next brand up, I haven't made any of the patterns myself before, but I know they're extremely popular in the community, and that is Sinclair Patterns Harper cardigan. So this is basically just like your standard straight cardigan. in with a straight border on it. It is just like a nice simple basic, and it comes in several lengths, all the lengths you would want, so that's really great. The other one they have is the Valley Knit skater dress. Exactly what I just sounded like. It's a knit skater dress. It does have a really cool lantern sleeve sort of version, but again, they're trying to sell you something here. They've got an add-on pack for that skater dress that's like $12. So depends what you want to do. Personally, this one doesn't come with any bust cups or like cup options. So for me, being a G cup, buying a knit pattern that doesn't have any of that built in is a little annoying. I would probably go with something like the Grafton that has all the skirt options. It's like a few dollars more and comes with all the skirt options and the cup options, because that would save me time. Again, talking about like what is a false economy. If you like just the basic skirt by itself, I mean, it is very nice by itself. It could be worth it for you if you're not full busted like me. Again, all these things to consider when you're looking at these free patterns. So the next one I have is from 5 out of 4 Patterns. Now, I want to say I've made one 5 out of 4 Patterns like a long time ago, but I did think this was worth mentioning, especially this time of year. They have a whole bundle of family pajama pants. Again, very simple pattern, but I thought I would mention it because it's super useful because of the size range. This actually has a really good size range on it, especially for the guys in your life. So super useful. I might even download that one myself just to have for Adam. Next, we have community fan favorite, which is the peg legs pattern. This is for Patterns for Pirates, which is very funny that it's called the peg legs pattern. And this is a leggings pattern, and this one comes with a lot of options. Again, very typical of Patterns for Pirates as far as I can tell. It's knit, which is primarily what they do, and it comes with a whole bunch of options. So it comes in low, mid, or high rise, which is really nice. I know a lot of people like that. And it comes with all the different lengths that you could want, from like shorts to ankle length. So you could use this as like a chub rub pattern, which would be really good. It also comes with like a separate free pocket pattern and like color blocking pattern and a maternity pattern. So a lot in here. I know this is a fan favorite. I think they used to charge money for this pattern, but they don't anymore. They're calling it a gift to their community, which is kind of nice, honestly. But I know this one is exceptionally popular. I've seen a lot of people make this one. So if that's something that you wanted to make, I think it's a really good option. They also have a very, very size inclusive apron pattern. Again, very adorable, has a little skirt on it, and it's quite simple. I actually really like this one. Again, very simple. It's another apron pattern, but I actually really like it. So, and again, it's like very, very size inclusive. I think it goes up to a 57-inch waist. So very, very good, especially for like a more feminine apron, which is nice. They do have several other free patterns, but they're not brought all the way up into their full size range yet. So if you're on the lower end of plus size, those might be something to look at, but I'm not including them here on my official list just because they don't quite come up to snuff in my opinion. Okay, so the next one up is one that I actually have made, and this is from Friday Pattern Company. It is the Sunday V-neck top, which is sort of a funky raglan, like it's a kind of curved raglan sleeve with a V-neck. I actually think it's a little bit different. It's a little nice because it's got something a little bit different about it, which is always something I'm looking at for especially men, because the men's patterns are boring. So I did make this one up for Adam. One thing that I will mention is that Friday Patterns Company's sizing and like amounts of ease they like in their patterns does tend to be quite generous and is generally a little bit more than I would like. And I've heard feedback from other people that they've had a similar experience. On the picture that she is showing as one of these, she did mention that she sized down to get the fit of how it looks on her brother. So that's kind of what I went with in the one that I made for Adam. I believe I used the finished garment measurement that matched his measurement across the chest to get a good fit on that, because this does have spandex in it, so it doesn't really need that much ease in it. Positive ease in the chest anyway, and that worked out super great. So I would recommend that method. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 sizes down, so I would definitely recommend that. Other than that, great pattern, but just something to be aware of and a quirk of the pattern company. I don't know if I would necessarily make this pattern for me just because it doesn't have any bust shaping in it. They do a lot of unisex patterns, so if that's something you're interested in, again, if it was me and I was looking at this as a free pattern for myself. I don't necessarily know if I would spend the time working on actually having this have bust area built into it. You know, I would be better off to go with a pattern, say like the Initial Love Notions one, that has some of that built in. That would be a better option to spend my time and money on. However, for Adam, looks awesome. Love it on him. And I definitely want to make him a couple more versions. So if anyone has a good resource for some cotton spandex that is not $1 million and you can get on a regular basis, let me know. I thought I'd just mention it, sort of a throwaway, honestly. Closet Core does have one free pattern. It is also a t-shirt. It is cropped and boxy, which is very Closet Core. And if you wanted to check out kind of their sizing and how that works on you and their style of instructions, and you for some reason need a t-shirt pattern, might be worth a try. Honestly, pretty boring. But I thought I'd throw it on here anyway. It's got a good size range. So the next two are from So Over It, which is something I was very excited to see because there's something a little bit different. So the first one is the Ruby skirt, which is a very simple skirt, but still very cute. Like, I would definitely make this. It's got a button placket down the front, a couple of subtle pleats, and then it's elastic waisted around the back. If you made this up in like a lovely crepe, it would be a great beginner project, and it would be nice enough. You could definitely wear this to work for sure. This is definitely a type of skirt that I love to wear every day. It's a great basic. The other one that they have is the Annie blouse. And this one is just like kind of a simple, straightforward, slightly loose blouse with gathering at the neckline. Very nice. And like I say, a little bit different, but you could also easily wear this to work. I really like both of these. They have like the hint of vintage, which is sort of So Over It. And I'd say So Over It's like a little bit nicer. You know, it's coming from the UK. They actually like try and like dress a little bit, it seems like, over there. So, but yeah, it was nice. It was nice to see these. Again, you have to sign up for their newsletter, but I think it's a fair trade-off. I was pleasantly surprised. I went in on there just like looking to see if they had anything, and that was one of them. So the next free pattern is a bit of an honorable mention. It is from Twig and Tale, and they have a tailor's pressing ham pattern and tutorial. This is one of those things that I would say is an essential tool if you are a plus-size sewist, and I've recently found out that the ones that you buy are made of polyester now, which is absolutely absurd. It goes against everything that you need these for. I would highly recommend making your own. The Twig and Tale tutorial does call for the like wood chips in there, which I think is the best material. I didn't make this one. I actually inherited this one from my Nana, and she had made it many years ago. You can see the little stitching on there. I would highly recommend that you make your own pressing ham. It does really help, especially when you're trying to do bust darts or princess seams or anything like that that is required, even a sleeve head when you're plus size. I would definitely recommend that you go ahead and get yourself that, because I think it's actually probably more valuable than just buying yourself one. So highly recommend that. So I was going to mention a few alternative ways to get yourself some free patterns, one of which is by following drafting tutorials and guides. So there's a lot of these that already exist here on YouTube and elsewhere online. I will mention mine up above. I did a tutorial for a pleated front skirt with slash pockets and elastic back. I think it's a really beginner friendly project, so I would highly recommend going have a look at that one. I was really proud of it, even if it's a little dry. But also there are like more reputable guides as well. I know Elisa Lex from By Hand London has done several tutorials over there on drafting yourself projects, so I'll leave a few of them down below. She did some really kind of more interesting ones. She did like a nap dress tutorial. There's one for sort of another style of like peasant dress, milkmaid dress, and she has one for a paneled skirt, which I am actually really interested in, which is really cool. She also just came out with a book, which I'm hoping will hit my local library, which is another really good way of getting yourself some free patterns. Again, thinking of the ways in which people are producing patterns, they're producing patterns to try and sell a book. Your library's already bought the book, so therefore you just get the lovely free patterns. I know that the Cashmerat book Ahead of the Curve was available at Austin Library here, and so I would imagine they're going to be getting Sewing the Curve as well. And if they aren't, you can always request that your library bring in a book as well. Most libraries do take requests, which is very exciting, and so don't just think if they don't have it. It might take you a while, but you can always still get a free book, and I would love to see more plus size pattern books in circulation, so that's never bad. Also remember too, there's like other free resources available at your library. Some of them do have things like machine rentals, or some of them even have things like embroidery machine rentals. And my local sewing group meets at the library. So there's lots of things that are available to you. And so I would highly encourage you checking out what's available in your local community. Last but not least, nothing is cheaper than the pattern that you do not have to buy. So I'm sure you have some patterns already, most likely, or you've made some patterns up before. So one thing that I would highly recommend is looking at how you can stretch your patterns. Now, when I'm looking at a pattern, I try and make sure that I can find a way to make 3 or 4 different versions of that pattern that I would be happy with before I buy it. And this is one of the things that's really helped me in getting excited about a pattern and how you can hack that pattern and move it forward. I'll leave one of my favorite hacks up above. I hacked a wrap dress to be a 1940s top. So think outside of what is shown on the pattern and trying to hack it into a number of different things actually saves you a lot of time and money, because you've already fit the pattern, you've already done the work, you already own it. So that takes out a lot of the cost and a lot of the stress out of the pattern by just hacking it and changing it into something else. So I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of thoughts and opinions on my hot take, and I'm sure I missed several fabulous patterns. So if you have any, let me know down below in the comments, and like and subscribe while you're down there. I have another great video coming out here shortly on how to save some money in your sewing, and I will see you on the next one. Bye guys.